New TICAD will do its utmost to support Japanese enterprises that are bidding on the future of Africa.
President Muhammadu Buhari at TICAD 7 as Japan introduces a new approach to peace and stability on the continent.
Next level agenda with budget issues in focus as Vice President Osinbajo presides over first economic management team.
Federal government approves the decrease of visa charges payment by U.S. citizens to $160.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, our focus is on the $9.6 billion judgment debt against Nigeria.
Now, on the 16th of August this year, a London court in its judgment authorized the Process and Industrial Development Limited, P&ID, a foreign company, to seize $9.6 billion in Nigerian assets over a contract entered into by the company and the Ministry of Petroleum Resources in 2010.
Well, the development has generated reactions and, more importantly, questions on how Nigeria got entangled in this, plus the authenticity of the said project.
Yes, indeed, Kingsley. The P&ID 9 years ago, precisely January 11, 2010, signed a 20-year gas supply and processing agreement with the Ministry of Petroleum Resources on behalf of the Nigerian government. Under the terms of agreement, the P&ID was to build and operate an accelerated gas development project to be located at Aniabo in Udumaki Council area of Cross River State. Well,
Kirian, there are indications that the P&ID firm itself never put a shovel in the ground on the basis of the purported agreement that was intended to generate initially a volume of some 150 million cubic feet of gas per day and subsequently rise up to 400 million cubic feet per day of gas during the 20-year period that the contract was supposed to subsist.
And with the contract having suffered a setback, P&ID in 2012 served the Nigerian government a request for arbitration, claiming mainly for the loss of profit for the 20-year term of the agreement.
Well, Kirian, that's one of the issues that we're having to deal with today. If you recall, the arbitration tribunal in an earlier interim award had ruled that Nigeria breached the contract, which, of course, Nigeria then challenged and successfully, of course, applied to have that award set aside by the Federal High Court in Lagos. But that decision was ignored by the arbitration tribunal.
Again, in January 2017, the tribunal rendered its final award against the Minister of Petroleum Resources to the sum of more than $6.5 billion and with a pre-award interest of 7% per annum. That to, among other things, take effect from March 2013.
Well, Kirian, now that move has now led to an increase in the size of the award to $9.6 billion, even though Nigeria has made several attempts to renegotiate the award to resolve the whole issue amicably with P&ID, but those efforts have not been successful.
And the battle has lingered on, and many have continued to frown at the manner in which the contract was negotiated and signed.
Well, there are views being expressed with regard to what probably went on. Was there connivance? Is there some international conspiracy to inflict economic injury on Nigeria and her people?
Well, as a people-oriented government and in an attempt to unravel the circumstances surrounding the entire transaction, President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, the National Intelligence Agency, NIA, and the Inspector General of Police to thoroughly investigate the matter.
Well, the federal government has also said that there is no imminent threat to Nigeria's assets anywhere in the world, and that the federal government is taking all steps necessary to appeal the decision of the UK courts to seek for a stay of execution of a decision, and indeed, if not a reversal altogether.
But why is the place of patriotism and national interest in all of this? What stringent measures in place to forestall recurrence? And are there more to the issue at hand? But these are more on today's, we'll learn more on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Well, thank you for joining us. But Kingsley, you know, I read that there was a move, you know, to resolve the matter out of court at a certain point in time. But somehow the P&ID company claims that Nigeria didn't come forward, you know, for that negotiation or something like that.
Well, yeah, well, those are some of the accounts that are out there in the public domain. But we also know that the Nigerian government has made spirited efforts to ensure that it gets this matter resolved amicably, as we had earlier indicated. But those efforts would appear to have not been successful on account of what we have seen. But there are also concerns. I mean, what kind of damages have been awarded to a company, P&ID, before the pre-award and after the pre-award? And if you look at the percentage interest that is that's accumulating, and now you have $9.6 billion. Which country has the money to pay that?
To pay that kind of amount of money.
All right.
Well, I am Kirian Umar, welcoming you to today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to the program. As always, we are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're right here at the Abuja headquarters studios. And of course, in the course of the program, we have our usual complimentary segments, and these include newspaper review, business, and others. In the meantime, let's take the highlights of the morning news, and here is our colleague Chimobi Walter-Anaji. Good morning, Chimobi.
Hello, good morning, Kingsley and Kirian. It's nice to see you this morning. Good morning, Nigeria. Here's morning news. Now, in response to the rising tensions, conflicts, and other acts of criminality, as well as their impact on Africa's development aspirations, Japan has introduced a new approach to peace and stability on the continent called NAPSA. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who announced this at the opening of the 7th Tokyo International Conference on Africa Development in Yokohama, said the new idea is aimed at fostering Africa's prosperity, where President Muhammadu Buhari is leading Nigeria's delegation to the conference.
It has been utterly correct. The TICAD philosophy of ownership and partnership and of valuing each human being individually will not waver even the slightest as it continues to guide the path of Africa and Japan.
And still from Japan, worried over the closure of the Nigerian-Benin border by the federal government and its consequences on his country's economy, President Patrice Talon of Benin Republic has visited President Muhammadu Buhari to seek for understanding and possible intervention. The crucial engagement took place on the sidelines of the Tokyo International Conference on African Development in Yokohama, Japan. The Nigerian leader also met President Ramaphosa over the killings of Nigerians in South Africa.
Extremely concerned that now that Nigeria, through our agricultural policies, has become self-sufficient in rice production, that this is now threatened, and a lot of Nigerians are now going back to the farm. This is an existential threat to the country to allow this smuggling to persist.
It was also good to have this opportunity here in Japan to renew the bonds between us and to talk about common things between South Africa and Nigeria.
And back home in Nigeria, the federal government of Nigeria has approved the decrease of visa charges payable by U.S. citizens to $160. In a statement issued by the Office of the Minister of Interior, Ralph Areboshala stated that in line with reciprocity policy adopted by the United States of America's Embassy and the Nigerian government, U.S. immigrants applying for visa is now to pay $160 accordingly. The Comptroller General of Nigeria Immigration Service, Mohammed Babandede, has been directed to implement the decrease in Nigeria's visa charges to U.S. citizens with effect from Thursday, 29th August 2019. Now, the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, has presided over the first Economic Management Team meeting of President Buhari's second term. Theme next level agenda. Budget issues in attendance are Ministers of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, Industry, Trade and Investment, Richard Adebayo, Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, Budget and National Planning State, Clement Ike, and the Minister of Petroleum State, Timothy Silva. Also in the meeting are the CBN Governor, NNPC GMD, FIRS Chairman, DG Budget, DG Debt Management Office, DG MBS, and Special Advisor on Economic Matters, among others. And moving on now, a federal high court in Abuja, presided over by Justice Nkonye Maha, has declined hearing on the application challenging the continuous detention of Omole Shore by the Department of the Security Services. She ruled that hearing the application will amount to her reviewing the order given by the Court of Equal Jurisdiction.
We're going to meet with our client today in order to take a decision on the matter. But in the interim, we are back to the Honorable Justice Taiwo as per the ruling of the court.
And on to some political stories. The All Progressives Congress has released a list of successful aspirants that will participate in the August 29th governorship primaries in Kogi and Bayelsa states. And still on that coming governorship elections, the National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress, APC, has cleared a governorship aspirant, Babatunde Ayokunle Irukere, to contest the party's Kogi governorship primaries. In a statement by the APC National Publicity Secretary, Larry Saunelu, said Babatunde Irukere successfully met the conditions provided by the party's guidelines for the nomination of candidates within the time granted to clarify him. And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kieran just after the break. Do stay with us.
Their ancestors were taken away as slaves. Now they return as kings and queens on a pilgrimage back to the motherland. The third door of return ceremony, Diaspora Festival, Badagry, Lagos, Nigeria, takes place in Badagry from the 15th to the 20th of October 2019. For details on participation and sponsorship, contact the following. Website adore.ng. The African Door of Return Experience. Don't miss it. Brought to you by the African Door of Return Experience Initiative in collaboration with the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission and the African Renaissance Foundation. Chief host, the Lagos State Government.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Please, did you hear that?
Of course I did. That is village headmaster tune.
Eh? So Auntie Amebo was not gossiping then?
Village headmaster is celebrating 50 years.
50? Already? This is not a joke. Oh.
It is a national celebration. NTA and village headmaster family are commemorating 50 years.
Please, tell me, when is our golden jubilee?
It is from the 8th to 11th of October 2019.
I have to go and get ready. It's time to party.
Women, women, but we men will be there too.
Please.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, time for us to take some business stories, and here is our correspondent, Kunle Adeyeye.
A team comprising Ime Okon, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Infrastructure, Abdullahi Ibrahim, Chairman House of Representatives Committee on Steel, and Alex Oko, Director General Bureau of Public Enterprises, were on a fact-finding mission to Ajaokuta Steel Company to ensure Nigeria taps into the possibilities of the steel sector to transform the country's economy. While interacting with the management of Ajaokuta Steel Company, Mr. Oko told them about the willingness of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration to resolve the legal issues between the federal government and Global Infrastructure Nigeria Limited. The team also commended the management of Ajaokuta Steel Company for making use of available internal resources with little external assistance to conduct a technical audit which will assist federal government fashion out the way forward. And the equities market on Wednesday closed on a positive note as Nigerian Stock Exchange or Share Index appreciated by plus 0.02% to close at 27,607.02% as against minus 0.32% depreciation recorded previously. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Kunle, thank you for that report. We appreciate that. And next on Good Morning Nigeria is a review of today's dailies.
Our newspaper reviewer, Baya Tobe, is right here with us in the studios. Baya, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Kyrian.
Yeah, good morning, Baya.
Good morning,
You're welcome.
Nigeria. Thank you.
Yeah, we have about 5 newspaper stories for this morning.
Absolutely.
And let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust below the nameplate, why Nigeria-Benin border was partially closed down. The story is on page 3. Media Trust honors 41 staff for integrity long service, on page 12. We're talking about Daily Trust newspaper. The federal government reduces visa charges for U.S. citizens. And now the lead story this morning on Daily Trust, how bandits abducted 49 in Katsina by village head. 3 ABU students freed after kidnap on Kaduna-Abuja road. And on the foot of the Daily Trust newspaper, Zazaki, federal government fingers Iran in Islamization plot. It's on page 3. APC shifts Bayelsa governorship primaries, clears 9 for Kogi. And now 153 stranded Nigerians evacuated from Libya. That's all for Daily Trust this morning.
Okay, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Punch above the nameplate. Let's take the headlines there, quite a number of them. MPC members, MPC stands for Monetary Policy Committee, raised concerns over federal government and states' debts. That's on page 13. And the story that Kyrian read a while ago, Nigeria-Benin border closed to stop smuggling. That's attributed to President Buhari. Power probe, NDPHC officials detained for alleged 850 million naira fraud. That's page 2. Iran backing ex-Zakzaki to Islamize Nigeria, says federal government. Now, 2 earpieces there beside the nameplate. Judge turns down Shaware's application against detention order. That's page 2. Big boys added to FBI fraud suspects, and that's according to the EFCC. This story says Chinese firms handling $47 billion key federal government projects. Details on page 28, with two riders on the front page. Railway to go up 33 billion naira. Power supply contracts take $10 billion. Attraction to China, low prices, cheap labor, and low interest loans. Then you see the photograph there of President Muhammadu Buhari and members of the official delegation to TICAD 7, which is taking place in Yokohama in Japan. ICPC frees 14 females locked in Abuja house. Page 13. Rape. Police to grill Fatoyinbo for third day. And Benue sets up panel to control flood. Page 11. Bayo.
Yes, let's start from fallout from TICAD in Japan. President Muhammadu Buhari has indicated that the border between Nigeria and Benin were temporarily closed because of the challenges of smuggling, particularly smuggling of rice. The president asserted that Nigeria has attained sufficiency reasonably in food supply, and the smuggling of rice across that border is becoming a serious threat for Nigeria. And he has considered that in no distant future, the partial closure will be lifted. This was as a result of the intercession by the President of Benin Republic, President Talon. On that same occasion, too, he spoke with President Ramaphosa, who also indicated that xenophobia attacks in South Africa are regretted. And meanwhile, the criminal justice system in South Africa is taking charge of it. And he said there is no reason why anybody should be killed at all for just mere disagreement by persons, that the justice system will take care of that. Meanwhile, 3 Kaduna State Police Command operatives says that 3 ABU law students who were among those abducted on Monday have been, their release have been secured. The spokesman for the Kaduna State Command indicated that the 3 had been rescued and they are in pursuit of the other ones. Armed men in military uniform were said to have set a roadblock near Olam Farm, very close to Kaduna, on the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway. A commercial driver who cited the attack on the highway made a detour and reported to a military checkpoint. By the time the soldiers came, they had already marched their victims into the bush. But the police were able to secure the release of 3 law female students, 2 of them female, 1 a male. By the time DSP Yakubu Sabo says that Kaduna State Police Command has rescued the students and they are in pursuit of 3 others, but the report earlier on had indicated there were 7 that were rescued. Also, in Katsina, I think, the police have rescued 10 women out of 15 that were adopted by bandits in Wurma in Kurfi local government area. The bandits invaded that village, shooting in the air and carted away the women as well as some heads of cattle. Spokesman for Katsina Command, Anas Gezawa, says the police is on the trail. A man who also took a ransom of 350,000 to kidnappers who kidnapped a health worker in Kaduna was also taken in. This was after he delivered 350,000. He was hit from the back, tied down and blindfolded. He was not rescued until after 4 days. He said for every day they were fed with 2 spoonsful of gari for each day. He was released after 300,000 was also subsequently paid. Kidnapping is becoming rampant in Rigasa. Rigasa is a suburb of Kaduna.
Well, are you talking about just Rigasa? Elsewhere, even in the southeast, in Enugu precisely, we've been having these pockets of kidnapping incidents across the nation. And, well, some opinions would rather say that, look, something serious must be done in terms of the law, in terms of enacting a law against this kidnapping saga. It has become so notorious that, in fact, don't be surprised that people may be kidnapped, even right here in Abuja, sleeping at night. People will come and knock off for you and wake you up and get you kidnapped. It's getting to that level now because people are picking people from the city centers.
Well, in recent, kidnapping has been on the low ebb. If you recall, since August 6th, when Wadume was arrested in Taraba, up to now, there has not been any kidnap incidents along that axis. He had 3 gangs that were operating between Nasarawa, Taraba, and Benue. And since his arrest, that has gone down. Even the Kaduna-Abuja highway, it had gone down until last Monday that we had this resurgence. So what is happening is that the boys are now broke and they are coming back again, those that have been hiding. But the police have been doing tremendous job and they've been actually tackling all of them. In the southeast, there have been instances. You recall the Reverend Father who was killed? Already the persons who were involved have already been apprehended. But there are pockets of criminality, incidents of kidnapping, but the police trying their best, but they need the clear support of members of the public to give them information to be able to tackle this.
That's right, very important. What Kirian said with regard to kidnapping taking place right in the city center, inside the city, not necessarily in the city center, occurred some days ago with the kidnapping of the chief medical director of the Irua Teaching Hospital. That's in Edo State. Yeah. He was abducted, and unfortunately, two of the police orderlies on his convoy were killed by the abductors. And this took place at Ramak Park. That's a very busy location in Benin City. And as you said, I mean, the southeast, there are frequent reports. Exactly, frequent reports. We do hope that the authorities, of course, the police, as you indicated, have done a tremendous job, and that they will continue to be on top of the situation. Kira, let's return to the...
All right, let's go to the Blueprint newspaper. The Blueprint on the right-hand side of the nameplate of the Blueprint newspaper. We have Nigeria Air still on federal government's agenda, says Serika. That story can be found on page 36. Flood overruns Ado Ekiti, cuts off communities. And that's on page 13. And directly below the nameplate, untold story of presidential poll shift, says Yakubu, that's the INEC chairman, explains the ICT connection. 24 hours after federal government backs down on U.S. reciprocity visa, that's on page 5. Now, the lead story this morning on Blueprint, we are on trail of 77 indicted Nigerians in the U.S., says EFCC, with 2 riders, says bigger suspects will be uncovered. Detective cadets graduate Saturday. The story is on page 6 of the Blueprint newspaper. And the foot of the Blueprint, UNICEF targets 1 million Nigerian girls for school enrollment. That's on page 13. 1999 Constitution can't solve Nigeria's problems, says Afe Babalola, on page 21. Missing FCT Justice Idris are found in Abuja satellite town. That's on page 18. Kogi, uncertainty as APC holds primary today. Party shifts Bayelsa exercise. Page 23 is where you get the story. Now, we close Nigeria border over smuggling, says President Buhari. That's on page 41 of Blueprint.
Okay, now Daily Sun newspaper is next for us. Daily Sun, they have an earpiece there. It says internet fraud. That's the kicker. Wait for more shocker. That's attributed to the EFCC. And says commission will unravel bigger suspects and begins clampdown on bankers and BDC operators. BDC stands for Bureau de Change Operators. Details of that story can be found inside. Now, the EFCC is also, according to a writer there, detaining 2 top officials of NDPHC and others over the $16 billion power probe. Now, the latest story, this is coming from the courts. It says FG, federal government exposes Zaki, with the writer accuses Shiite leader of plotting to Islamize Nigeria and not recognizing Buhari as president. Now, below the photographs there and above the strip advert on the front page, federal government clamps down on NGOs and firms, says they are financing terrorism and may commence delisting soon. That's on page 8. And on page 6, Ruga, Unwodo never collected bribe from federal government. That's according to Obi.
Let's start with the story about the EFCC. The EFCC has arrested 2 officials of the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, allegedly for fraud of about 50 billion naira. It is part of the resolve to probe the 16 billion federal government power project, recall, that has been on for a long time. 2 officials were alleged to have been involved in a bogus payment and diversion of about 850 million compensation meant for communities, while communities say they never received it. In another development, EFCC also arrested the managing director of a pivot engineering firm over alleged 350 million, also involving communities between Ihiala, Olu transmission line, while the communities say they have not received any compensation. A third arrest is of the managing director of a Chris Egic company, also 500 million meant to be for lot 14, covering Lekki Aja transmission line that was not executed but has been paid. So now to the courts, two critical cases. The Federal High Court Abuja has heard that Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaki, leader of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, is alleged to be sponsored by Iran to replace the 1979, to replicate the 1979 violent revolution in Iran. That is to say, to take over power in Nigeria. This is sequel to the response by the federal government regarding the proscription of the Islamic movement in Nigeria. The court held that there's a 56-page affidavit sworn by the Deputy Commissioner of Police for MCT, and he clarified that it gave a long history of how it has started when, as a student, he left the university, went to Iran, and came back, became a Shia. And since then, he has been recruiting youths, and they are all having the focus of emulating Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran, who in 1979 overthrew the government of Shah and replaced it with Islamic Republic of Iran. The result is that many Muslim youths have converted to his brand of Shia, IMM. The main vehicle is to proselytize and propagate Iranian type of revolution in Nigeria. The other issue at the court also relates to Umar Showore, who had asked a court to review the order allowing the DSS to retain him for 45 days. At the hearing, the response to the application was by lawyer Femi Falana. The judge, Evelyn Justice Maha, sitting as a vacation judge, said that she is not competent to review the pronouncement of her learned brother of a co-current jurisdiction, and therefore they declined to review the case.
Okay, our editorial this morning is coming from the Nigerian Pilot, and it's at page 3. How to get rid of corruption in academic examination.
Well, corruption is the war on everybody's mind, and the danger here is that this editorial is happening on corruption in our educational institutions. It has happened on the recent report by West Africa Examination Council about the level of malpractices during the last examination, that of NECO yesterday, and also those reported by JAMB when it released its result. Only yesterday, National Examination Council in MENA announced that there were over 43,000 malpractices, and many of them were within mathematics. Now, the editorial is saying that this is occasioned by parents, guardians, friends, associates, and it has started from kindergarten, creche, nursery, primary, secondary, up to university. Parents are using monies to induce and secure favors for their children about academic qualification. And it adds that this has also permeated our political landscape, where there have been instances of fraudulent certificates by people who are contesting to leave this country. In fact, interestingly, the Director General of the National Youth Service Corps gave warning of recent that some institutions would be derecognized for their graduates coming for the service. Why? They discovered somebody who was serving in the NYSC and could not recite alphabet from A to Z. One could not spell the surname. That tells you that that one has not even seen the four walls of an institution.
Then how did he get there?
Absolutely.
How did he get there?
Yeah, pertinent question. But it should not be the fault of the institution. It could very well be that the individual just used the papers of the institution. But it seems incredible in the first instance that a person would go through or purport to be a candidate for the NYSC and cannot recognize the alphabets A to Z or A to Z, as what we say.
But so this is laughable, actually. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
Laughable, because this is the ABCD, the starting point, of education, and one wonders how a university graduate cannot recite ABC to Z. It's unbelievable. In fact, as a matter of fact, I've refused to believe this, until I see that myself.
From the Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, and he has warned institutions. That tells you that there are fraudulent practices. You recall, not too long ago, in Nasarawa State, they had a fake camp for NYC members that was invaded.
Yes.
So, no, it is possible that those persons who are presenting themselves are not bona fide graduates of of those institutions. So why then should the blame be on the institution? It should be on that particular person. Prove your bona fide. If once you are picked up, if you cannot write A, B, C to Z, prove your bona fide that indeed you are a graduate of the school that you claim to have graduated from.
But you get to National Youth Service Corps upon being a graduate of an institution where you get your call-up letter.
Is it from the NYC? I don't know how it's done now.
Yes.
Is it
the call-up letter comes to the institution. That's where you collect it.
That's right. NYC. That's right. Well, there are all kinds of printing devices now.
You can even use your phone to do as a to print.
Okay, but
sanity in our institution. That's what the editorial is.
That's right. That's right.
If this continued, then we are in big trouble. When it comes to the education sector, especially our younger generation of Nigerians who wouldn't just want to be studious, we just want to get a certificate, to get a job.
Yeah, but we must also recognize the fact that there are brilliant and hardworking students.
Oh, yeah, sure, of course.
Studious, yes. Yeah. And they're all over the institution, so just have a few bad eggs.
You recall the young man of, is it 15 or 16?
15
for JAM.
For JAM.
Who almost broke all the records. There have been instances, too, of the WAEC result that was released and NECO, some brilliant performance by very young Nigerians.
Absolutely, and we continue to have them. Bayo, would like to thank you for being around.
Thank you, too.
We'll see you again tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with our item for discussion this morning, which is on the $9.6 billion US judgment debt against Nigeria in favor of P&ID. Have I heard of that, friend?
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
Well, we thank you for being with us. Now, we now take a report by Anthony Folsom to set the tone for the discussion on the $9.6 billion judgment against Nigeria.
Accompanied by his counterpart from Justice, Abubakar Malami, and that of Finance, Budget and Planning, Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed, along with the Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, Lai Mohammed narrated the history of a contract between the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources and a foreign firm, Process and Industrial Development, which has led to a UK court authorizing the seizure of a $9.6 billion asset belonging to Nigeria. The minister explained that in 2010, a 20-year gas supply processing agreement was entered into with P&ID, which the company never performed as agreed. The minister further explained that the contract, having suffered a setback, went to the arbitration court, where Nigeria was said to have breached the contract.
After the arbitration award in 2017, Nigeria made several attempts to negotiate the award and resolve the whole issue amicably with P&ID, but to no avail, which eventually led to the enforcement proceedings instituted simultaneously by the company in both the US and the UK.
While Nigeria has recorded some measure of success in the case in US, it became clear that the ruling in favor of P&ID were clearly unreasonable and manifestly excessive and exorbitant.
We want to place on record that the federal government views with serious concerns the underhanded manner in which the contract was negotiated and signed. Despite the recent recognition of the award by a UK court, and contrary to some reports, Nigeria is not, and I repeat, is not about to lose any of its assets to P&ID. There is no imminent threat to Nigeria's assets.
On their part, the Minister of Justice and that of Finance and Budget Planning, as well as the CBN Governor, called on Nigerians to remain resolute as the federal government is determined to protect the citizens' common inheritance.
So when you conceived, sign and execute a contract for the supply of gas products without involving IOCs, NPDC, and NNPC as a party to that agreement, you know very well that there are a lot of questions to answer arising from the execution of that agreement.
For us in the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, we take comfort from the efforts that so far have been put in place by the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice to ensure that this judgment is set aside, because the consequences will be unpleasant for each and every Nigerian. And I hope our brothers and sisters in the press will help fight the cause of our country. We'll be doing that not just for this administration, but for our children and our children's children.
We have gone through our records. We don't have any information in our records to show that this company brought in 1 cent into this country. Time has come when Nigerians must rise against incidents of people alleging to be doing contract in Nigeria without investing a penny, all with an intention to defraud our country. The money that they want to take is the money that is our own common wealth that belongs to all of us. But it is very sad that you will find some Nigerian collaborators with some foreign interest under bogus intentions trying to defraud this country. If they have proof of their investment, we are calling on them to please come forward and provide us proof of how they invested money in this project.
For now, the federal government has initiated criminal investigation into the matter to ascertain the sincerity behind the initiation of the contract in the first place, as the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources is not in the right position to go into such contractual agreements.
And we have joining us in the studio this morning to clear the air and some of the issues raised concerning this judgment is the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Sir, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
Okay, Honorable Minister, a pleasure to have you with us on the program. We've listened to the background report that was taken, of course, from the press conference at which you were present, and you also had your brother Minister of Justice, and indeed the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget, National Planning, plus the Central Bank Governor. The whole issue would, on the face of it, seem so surreal. What is happening? Is this some movie that is playing out, or is some reality that Nigeria is faced with?
I wish it were a movie, but it's actually a very serious matter. Like I tried to reconstruct at my press conference on Tuesday, 27th of August in Abuja here. The contract for the gas supply was purportedly entered into in 2010 between the Process and Industrial Development, an Irish company, and the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources. But ab initio, it was a contract that was not meant to be. Because in the first instance, the contracting parties are very strange. If you want a contract to supply gas, you should have as party those who own the gas. The Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources does not owe any gas. The gas is owned by the IOCs, NNPC, and others. So ab initio, you can see the intent was less than honest. And unfortunately, some local actors, both from within the system and outside the system, have been fingered to have collaborated with local and international actors to defraud Nigeria. And this becomes even more evident in the sense that P and ID claim to have invested $40 million in the project. But Central Bank of Nigeria says there's no record of any importation of any money from P&ID. Now, they went to arbitration. And on the, I think, January 2017, the arbitration panel awarded $6.597 billion against Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources. And of course, that is Nigeria. And attempts were made immediately by P&ID to enforce that award. Of course, on the part of the federal government, we engaged the company to see whether there could be an amicable solution, because we looked at the equity of it. It did not bring in any penny into this project. And when you look at the final award, because by the time the final was given, August 16th, if I remember, it has ballooned to $9.6 billion. It's unprecedented. I mean, our experts all over the world have agreed that this is unjustifiable, it's exorbitant, it's unreasonable, and that it does not even reflect any attempt to protect the commercial interest of P&ID. If anything, it's just simply punitive on a gargantuan scale to inflict economic injury into all Nigeria and its people. And this is why the federal government is doing everything possible, first, to ask for a stay of execution, at the same time, ask to set aside the award. Meanwhile, on the home front, the federal government is set up, has directed both the EFCC, the NIA, and the IG to actually find out those who are the main actors that have put this country in this sorry state. It's quite unfortunate because it's one thing for you to actually breach a contract if you have entered into a contract, so to say, if the other party has performed. But for you to be slammed with a $9.6 billion fine, when the injury suffered by the other party cannot be quantified. And you see, arbitration is supposed to be restitution. It's supposed to restitute. It's not supposed to give you what would have made you over 20 years. And this is why we are leaving no stone unturned to ensure that this judgment is set aside. And again, I want to take the opportunity to assure Nigerians that there's absolutely no imminent threat to seizure of our assets, because even the UK court said that they cannot begin any attachment until the courts are back and there will be further hearing on the matter. So the federal government is taking every opportunity to ensure that our Commonwealth is not...
Honourable Minister, I'm just thinking, from what you have explained, it does seem that there are problems at the very beginning, at the incipient of the contract agreement with this company. Because, as you rightly pointed out to you, there are Nigerian players in this. No company can come to Nigeria without having, domestic backing here. And from what we read, that Nigeria was supposed to supply 400 cubic feet of gas within the period of 20 years, and that Nigeria reneged in its obligations. Now, many Nigerians will wonder, what was also the obligation of the company in the first place? Because you were talking about what their own input in the first instance. How much did they bring in the project? And that calls for so many questions, Honourable Minister. Was Nigeria in any way represented, during the arbitration? Were we there at that point in time to defend the nation? And if some of these issues were raised at the arbitration, one is believing that perhaps the judgment would have come so hard on Nigeria if we were effectively represented at the arbitration level. Were we there to defend ourselves?
You see, Kilian, like you rightly said, the entire contract was bizarre, still bizarre. In the sense that a company comes and says he wants a gas contract, and he enters a contract with the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources. They're not custodian of our gas, to start with. Two, we must please remind Nigerians that this contract was entered into in 2010. 5 clear years before this administration came in. But we accept responsibility because, governance has to continue, no doubt. Now, you raised the other issue, whether Nigeria was representing the arbitration. Of course, yes. The records available to me, there were 3, arbitrators. One, which is the practice, would be nominated by by one party, the other by the other party, and the 2 of them will agree on the third arbiter. So yes, Nigeria was represented on the arbitration by the former Attorney General of the Federation, Chief Ojo, SAN. So it's not true that we did not defend it or were not represented. And even immediately after the award, we went into negotiation with the process and industrial development. So all these accusations that the federal government did nothing, absolutely not true. We did. And immediately, the P&I made attempt simultaneously both in the UK and the US to enforce the award. We also engaged solicitors. And in the US, we succeeded, at least partially, in the US, and we are still there now, trying to defend, the patrimony of Nigeria. So it is not correct, and it's very unfair to say the federal government did nothing, that they were neither at the arbitration, nor they did do anything after the arbitration. No. We did all that, we ought to do.
Yeah, well, we will return to how Nigeria tried to pursue this case or defend its interest. But again, I had asked the question earlier, whether this is a movie or not, I mean, whether it is a piece of fiction. And my colleague Kieran has also raised that aspect in a sense. What do we know of the promoters of P&ID at this stage, or as at January 2010, when they entered into this purported agreement with the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources?
Kieran, like I said again, Kingsley, this agreement was entered into in 2010. Precisely in January 2010, under the administration of late Yaradua. And we also begin to wonder, was there due diligence? And this is exactly where where Mr. President Muhammad Buhari has, directed the EFCC, the IGP, the NIA, to actually look at the circumstances and unravel what led to this kind of contract that has become a nightmare for all of us. Who are the actors? What roles did they play? Past and present actors. Because it's clear there was collaboration and collusion between local players in and outside of government and, international collaborators to inflict on Nigeria this economic injury. Because it does not make sense. In the first instance, like I said, who are the contracting parties? I mean, this is the first time Nigeria is going to enter into a gas contract or in a refinery contract. You can't enter into a contract with somebody who does not own the product you want to refine. Plus, this company came, to me it's like a portfolio company, a briefcase company, came in, signed this agreement, and the next thing we had was that they accused Nigeria of breach.
See, Honorable, Honorable Mr. C, it's laughable for those who,
It's laughable. It's a nightmare, but it's nightmare.
Breach of what now?
I precisely.
You don't know, I don't know.
Like I said,
why this is pertinent, Honorable Mr. Yes, is because there are already insinuations that there are some anomalies and discrepancies, in the process of awarding this contract, right? And that's why what Honorable Mr. said is very important as well, that the local partners would have to be fished out, for them to make it clear to Nigerians their own role in this agreement.
That's why I asked about the promoters. Who are the promoters of P&ID?
Most commentators have been very grossly unfair to this administration. Number one, the contract was signed in 2010. Arbitration started in 2013. Award was given in 2017. And the moment we were seized of this matter, we immediately entered and took all precautions to ensure that we didn't get to this stage. Two, you see, it's quite disturbing the way Nigerians are commenting on this issue. They forgot that this is not about any particular administration. It's about Nigeria. $9.6 billion translates to about 3 trillion naira.
3.7.
And that is 20% of our foreign reserves. Now, imagine what is going to happen if $9.6 billion of our assets are attached, it's going to affect every Nigerian. And that is why we appeal to the sense of patriotism and objectivity of the media in handling this very, very delicate matter. It's an existential, threat to Nigeria. But I want to assure Nigerians that we, as a government, would take every step, legal, diplomatic, and otherwise, to ensure that we do not allow this kind of, what I call it, it's just a haste of our Commonwealth to take place.
I'm wondering, again, I mean, let's begin to break it down to the extent that we can on the basis of information that is available. The so-called agreement wasn't going to be the first contract that the Nigerian government or agencies of the Nigerian government were entering into with other parties. Look, we have the LNG project. So LNG is there. There is a framework for that. The IOCs are involved. The IOCs are co-owners of the LNG project. And then you also have NAPIMS, which is the investment arm of the NOC, which is the national oil company. Okay, Honorable Minister, please just try and explain this to us. I know that you are not P&ID. They said Nigeria was to construct pipelines, supply gas, was the Nigerian Ministry of Petroleum Resources now supposed to build the pipelines and supply the gas to an empty station? Did they turn a sword? Did they start constructing either the gas refining or whatever plant at Odukman?
What is the damage?
I am you are, and I'm days as you are. Honestly, because one begins to wonder what was going through the minds of those who have paid their signature to this contract in 2010. One they are aware of what even laymen are talking. When I say laymen, people who are not even in industry are talking about. You can't give what you don't have. Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources does not own any gas. The gas is owned either by the international oil companies, the NNPC, or the other subsidiaries of the NNPC that are involved in gas exploitation and exploration.
And they have licenses and leases.
So this was a contract that was just entered into clearly with an agenda, which is to fleece Nigeria. But they couldn't have gotten up with it if there had not been, internal conspirators.
Yes.
This is true of the matter. This is true of the matter. Honestly, the more you look at it, the more angry you become. But it's not about anger. It's about finding a solution to it.
That's right.
Yes.
And in all of this, as some commentators have actually said that even the award, of 9.6 billion is unreasonable and manifestly excessive in the first instance. What kind of award they'll have a 7% increase annually to have the kind of money we're talking about? And again, the central bank governor indicated that look, this group of people are ambushing, the nation's treasury, and that cannot be allowed to happen. Now, Honorable Minister, what are the present measures now being taken by government to address this?
Well, legally, the federal government has engaged very competent lawyers, both in the UK and the US. First, since the enforcement judgment is in the UK, we are working very hard first to get a safe execution and also subsequently to get the award to be set aside, because we believe it's manifestly, unjust, it's unreasonable. It goes beyond protecting the commercial interests of P&ID. It's like just like a commentator said that if any company gets this kind of award, it needs not to work again forever. It can close shop. And if you want to understand how Nigeria got to this solid state of our economy, it's contracts like this that led us to where we are today. And that's why the government, while we are taking action to ensure that our assets are not endangered, we are also making sure that those who are responsible for this do not go scot-free.
Well, what you have said also could be in tandem with some of the propositions by some other observers. Is it possible that these were just not just now, these were economic hitmen? Economic hitmen. Coming so soon, or just only a few years after Nigeria got debt relief. If you recall, as you said, agreements of this nature, debts that we took, left, right, and center, that got us into a debt trap for so many years. And then we got debt relief, and within a few years later, because of course the agreement was signed in January 2010, but there had been negotiations, so-called negotiations, with this company that says on its website frequently asked questions that it has done some projects in Nigeria, but those projects are not mentioned. So could it, I don't know. I mean, it's a very challenging conversation to have, because the more you seek to ask the questions, the more bizarre it all seems. Were we caught off guard or something?
Kingsley's one thing is very clear. There was no honest intention whatsoever in this contract. Both local players and international players were out to fleece Nigeria. It's very clear. And how the government in 2010 failed to see this is what baffles everybody. How could they have committed Nigeria to some contract? And again, I think this also taught us a lot of lessons. For instance, we should now start looking at how in future contracts involving Nigeria at this kind of scale and level with arbitration clauses, whether we should not start insisting on domiciling the arbitration in Nigeria. Because there's a lot also about what we call the arbitration economy.
That's right.
See, if the arbitration clause domiciles the arbitration in Nigeria, it then means that the arbitrators will come from all over the world to Nigeria. That way, they will develop the capacity also of our own lawyers. At the same time, rather than we spending money in going abroad, to defend our cases, would stay at home and do so. Because I've not seen yet, I might be wrong, whether any foreign company has come to do its arbitration in Nigeria. So I think this has also taught a lot of lessons, and I think both the NBA, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Ministry of Justice, we should now start thinking in future whether we should not be domiciling our arbitration.
Yes. Let's look as contractors. That's the place of the contract.
You have a legal background, but let me read out this. The award was handed by a tribunal constituted under the rules of the Arbitration Act of 1996. All right. England and Wales, and the Nigerian Arbitration and Coalition Act of 2004.
Yes.
Now, the question is why didn't this arbitration originate from the country of the agreement?
That's precisely. Honorable Minister.
Are we obligated? Are we obligated to now, respond?
We have a Lagos Court of Arbitration, for instance, and there's no reason why we cannot have another arbitration court in Abuja, for instance. But that's why I'm saying that probably in future and thinking forward, we should probably insist as much as possible that when it is going to be an arbitration clause, let it be domiciled in Nigeria. That's my point. I would throw this open to both the NBA, Ministry of Justice, Chamber of Commerce, because there's what is called an arbitration economy. I mean, everywhere in the world. And why can't we benefit? Why should we be supporting other economies on contracts that emanate from Nigeria? I think these are issues that we know.
Kyria, and part of what the Honourable Minister said earlier was to say that there's the implication that the clause in that agreement indicated that the place of arbitration will be in the UK.
But how could someone...
And don't forget too that the federal government actually challenged the award in the Federal High Court.
In Lagos.
In Lagos. It was ignored by the UK court. So those people who have been saying that federal government did nothing have actually not been fair to the federal government. Every step along the line, federal government took steps to ensure that this kind of nightmare does not arise.
But Honourable Minister, the previous administration, the administration before 2015, right, because we learned that the first award came, and after 5 years, there was no appeal by Nigerian government. Perhaps before the advent of this administration. Say because of the delay in Nigerian government appealing led to the second award by the British court.
I am not aware of that. What I know is that the contract was signed in 2010. They went to arbitration in 2013. In January 2017, and the arbitration gave an award against Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources for $6.597 billion. And immediately, the federal government engaged P&ID to see whether we can settle. So all those people who are, I've given you the dates. Contract was signed in 2010, the arbitration 2013, even before we came in. 2017, award was given. We entered into negotiation immediately. It did not yield anything. 2019, they went for enforcement. So where is the 5 years that they are alleging that we did nothing?
Well, again, we're speaking almost ex nihilo now, because Honourable Minister, see, the contract was entered into in 2010, yes, January 2010. Yes. One will assume that there are timelines, or there were timelines in the agreement. At such a time, Party A would do, let's assume Kyria is P&ID, it's the judgment creditor now. It would perform so much of its own side. Federal government would perform so much of its own side, as it were, or Ministry of Petroleum Resources. When did the breach occur? What had P&ID done to say that, by 2 years later, I say, okay, there has been a breach? What is as Nigerians would say, what is on ground, to show that they have made either part performance of their contract or full performance of their contract?
In fact, before the minister comes in, I read a text on this matter, where they said Nigeria was supposed to be supplying 400 cubic feet. That was where it ended. He said that Nigeria reneged. I was now wondering, was there any part of their own contribution which they did not renege on, that Nigeria did, as to now accuse Nigeria of ensuring that the project did not, because they are saying that the project failed because of Nigeria's inability to fulfill its own part of the agreement. And it has not been made specific.
Kyria, I asked that question earlier.
And I answered.
Yes. Sorry, Honourable Minister,
yes.
I asked the question earlier. Look, you construct pipelines.
Yes.
All right? And then you have your gas gathering fields. And when you gather the gas, you now pipe the gas to where they are supposed to process. To process. So
was there any processing plant?
That's the question I'm asking you.
We are saying that, to the best of our knowledge, this company did not invest 1 penny in Nigeria. Central Bank governor said publicly that there's a procedure when a foreign company is bringing funds into Nigeria to invest. There are forms to fill. There are records. And you state what you want to do with it. Now, there's no record that P&ID brought in 1 penny into Nigeria for this project. We do not see anywhere where any activity was conducted or undertaken by P&ID before they now claim that the contract was breached and rushed to arbitration. There are many questions
this is a
to
movie.
be answered. And it's a nice, I wish it was a movie. It's a very serious matter. Now, that's why I think that the investigations being conducted by the FCC, NIA, and IG will actually unravel many things.
Exactly.
And Nigerians will begin to see who are really the true enemies of Nigeria. To begin to see who collaborated with this, foreign company. To the extent that today, 1/5 of our total foreign reserve is being threatened. Now, it's a very, very serious issue.
Because, Mr. why I asked you whether Nigeria was represented at the arbitration was this point you made now. They didn't bring in a penny. They don't have any infrastructure in Nigeria established preparatory to be part of the agreement. And a court of law gave the judgment. So if we were represented, why weren't these facts, laid bare before the court?
I'm told that under the arbitration law, this particular one is that Nigeria would nominate an arbitrator. P&ID will nominate one. The two of them will jointly agree on a third arbitrator. And that was done. But how they are now agreed, how they arrived at this kind of punitive award beats one's imagination, because it's a world record. It does not, it goes beyond just compensating P&ID, because I don't go to an arbitration, you tell them this is what I've lost. We do not see what they've lost. This is a 20-year gas contract.
We have not even reached half mark.
We have not even started.
Half mark, even if say 10 years.
So this is why we are very confident that we will succeed.
I'm wondering, still looking at the league, say there's a breach of a contract. It's not as if there is frustration. In other words, it's assuming, some persons will raise this question, okay, you were supposed to have done X, Y, Z, you didn't do that, and so on and so forth, but can the contract be revived? If a contract is frustrated, it's a different, it might be a different consideration.
You see, Kingsley, I think if a company, ab initio, had an agenda, it's more profitable for him to go to arbitration, because something will come out of the arbitration and he has invested nothing. So whatever comes out of the arbitration is a profit for him. This is the way I look at it. But I think we should just allow our lawyers to go ahead with the filings, but we want to assure Nigerians that the federal government would not sleep until this matter is resolved in a manner that will not injure the interests of Nigeria or Nigerians.
And it's also important to bring in the actors in the Ministry of Petroleum Resources at that point in time, those persons who are directly involved in the negotiation of this contract. Because if you ask me and many Nigerians, one would say that, look, that was supposed to be a scam, so to speak. It's a contract scam. And those involved, they should be made to actually, not just to face the law, but to explain to Nigerians their level of involvement in this. Because from all indications, Honorable Minister, for all you've told us and our available records from the CBN, it shows that there was no deal in the first place. There was no concrete deal, in terms of deals backed by law, deals backed by all other necessary actions to be taken before such a huge contract is awarded.
You see, Kyria, one thing is clear. Without insider collaboration, we would not have reached this solid pass. Clearly, the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources had enough competent, experienced personnel to know that this kind of contract cannot be entered into without involving NNPC, without involving IOC. So that is why until this investigation is completed and concluded, we would not be able to know exactly what happened. But on the surface, I think it was a sham, ab initio, and the actors knew where they were going.
Well, that is the case you have repeated, Honourable Minister, and some commentators will also, most respectfully, review the decision by the UK High Court judge and wonder how His Lordship arrived at the punitive figures that have now been imposed on Nigeria. I mean, you're just wondering what's going on in the judiciary in the UK.
What they worked out is they worked out to say the initial one is 6.5 billion,
Whatever,
and then there's a 7% increase annually. Between then and now.
That's between 2010 and now.
And now that gave 9.6.
And like I said, number one, arbitrations are also supposed to be restitutional, to restitute you and bring you back to the position you were. There will be no loss. Now, what does $9.6 billion represent? Is it their investment? Or is it the anticipated profit in 20 years?
That's what it is, from what I...
No, but we have done only 9 years out of the 20 years.
Honestly, these are issues that I'm sure will be canvassed, very vigorously, both at the level of, asking for self-execution, level of, asking for the setting aside of this, very unfair award. But like I keep saying, this award is unreasonable, goes far beyond protecting the commercial interests of P&ID. It is exorbitant. It's not justifiable.
Well, all right.
We'll have some. I just, when I was talking about the disposition of His Lordship at the UK High Court, London High Court, one will wonder how the great Lord Denning, Master of the Rolls, might have viewed a case of this nature.
The one Justice Butcher was...
It's Justice Butcher that gave this, but yes. Lord Denning, the Master of the Rolls, how might he have viewed a matter of this nature? I mean, you're trying to...
All right, 32 weeks now, let's also see what Nigerians are thinking. From Akeju Olabaju, say the role of public officers in this kind of deal and other similar deals are suspicious. How do we explain how a joint venture translated to award of contract, and when it derailed, you submitted the arbitration clause for determination outside the jurisdiction?
Now, Festus Akimboyewa has this tweet. Government at all levels in Nigeria should examine the terms and conditions of all contracts they sign with foreign companies so as not to fall into this trap again. Henceforth, any arbitration clause in contracts we sign with foreign companies must be tailored to reflect our laws. That's part of what the Honourable Minister has said. And certainly, there are lapses in the way this matter was handled since 2010. Federal government must file the appeal and stay of execution of the judgment against the country.
Now, Abdul says the present government, though not the cause, should do everything possible to reverse the situation. Nigeria must appeal the judgment immediately, investigate and prosecute all those involved. Corruption must have played a role in the whole issue.
Babs, the federal government must go after everyone that's been a part of this shady deal. The EFCC, ICPC, and others have prominent roles to play. The country can't afford to lose such a huge sum at this crucial time in our national life. Government must review the case and, if bad enough, should negotiate for reduction. How did we get here? It's simple. Many of those who sat in positions of authority in the past were, in its worst, just wicked. They were only interested in what accrued to them, not about the entire country. These persons practically threw us under the bus.
He's the one, don't trust. You went about it. Okay, from Titus Monday, he said, wow, evil forces at work. Some people are just bent on seeing this country on its knees. Key actors in the contract should be fished out and made to account of what account of what happened.
Mike Ayakwo, the judgment dealt against Nigeria is unfortunate, and it firmly represents one of the many misdemeanors. This is more than a misdemeanor. A misdemeanor is, yeah, this is almost, some would say almost felonious, that put us in our present predicament. How can a nation move forward with this? The step taken by President Buhari is a welcome development. Persons found to have been involved in this heinous, wicked, and unforgivable crime against the nation must face appropriate sanctions, no matter their positions in society. Anything short of this would be unacceptable. We must call a spade a spade.
All right, now from Jack Solomon, that's a different view altogether. So the big question is why Nigeria's refusal to enter appeal for over 5 years since the ruling was given. Can we boastfully say we are responsible for this huge sum awarded because of our nonchalant attitude in attending to pertinent...
I'm afraid, Kyrian, you see, this is a kind of misinformation that is being sponsored by P&ID. P&ID has engaged some Nigerians to do their dirty job for them. Now, like I gave you the timeline, contract was entered into 2010. It went to arbitration 2013. The interim award was given 2017. Where is the 5 years that we didn't appeal? And immediately the award was given, federal government engaged with his lawyers, P&ID, to see how we could, arrive at an amicable solution. Was frustrated.
I think what the person was saying that in 2013, when the award first came, we had 14, 15, 16, 17, this is 4 years.
That's arbitration.
Okay.
That's arbitration. 2013 arbitration started, Nigeria was represented. So where is the 4 or 5 years that we did nothing?
Yeah. Well,
this kind of disinformation.
You say that some persons probably have been engaged to push the position of P&ID. Part of what is also available in the information space is the claim by PID that, look, it came as a do-gooder, that it was supposed to help, process this gas and then boost gas supply to the GENCOs, and then help Nigeria's 180 million people have electricity that were supposed to generate 3,000 megawatts.
If I've been awarded the $9.6 billion damages for doing nothing, I can employ the most expensive PR consultants in the world to spread this kind of story. This is what is happening. But unfortunately, even the Nigerians who are being employed and being engaged, they fail to realize that in the unlikely event that we lose 20% of our foreign reserves, they will also be affected.
Exactly.
I mean, there are examples in other parts of the world that when issues come like this, you should be very patriotic.
You see, Honorable Minister, I raised the question earlier, and then you've also addressed it. The question of economic hitmen. They manifest in different forms. Why is it that almost at all times, the quantum of Nigeria's foreign reserves is of interest to a certain... We know that, it is useful in terms of your import capacity, your capacity to pay your imports and then back up your credit and so on and so forth. But it just looks like portfolio presence or portfolio carriers around the world keep targeting Nigeria's foreign reserves to see what they can download from it and then take off. What is happening to us?
Kingsley, without internal collaborators, external conspirators will never succeed. I think we must admit that. There's something wrong with us in Nigeria. The people in the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources in 2010, they were not British, they were Nigerians. And this is why we must get to the root of this problem. We must find out those who are there and the role everybody played, either inside government or outside government.
Yeah, Honorable Minister, honestly, I don't envy you, and some of you who are in government, facing this kind of situation. And to make it worse, it's not taking place in Nigeria. It's not taking place in Nigeria. Yes. We have to go out of the country to face the music. But what also worries many is the fact that the first was in the U.S., in Washington, D.C.
So we are still, as a matter of fact, they are also asking for enforcement in the U.S. And we've engaged lawyers in the U.S. to fight that one, to challenge that also. Because, honestly, like I say, the whole thing is very unfortunate. It's a nightmare. And we just need to do two things. One, locally, find out and fish out those who are responsible for this. But more importantly, take all steps, legal, diplomatic, whatsoever, to ensure that this kind of, haste, because it's haste, it's just like daylight robbery.
Exactly.
Which, if allowed to take place, will have such, drastic effect on the
economy and even on the nation's
on the life
monetary
of
policy.
Everybody.
Exactly.
So that is the task before us now.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be, of course, concluding this edition of the program. For now, stay tuned.
Can I see your particulars, sir?
Officer, my particulars no dey here.
In that case, you'll have to come with me to the police station.
Officer, which levels? Where I for find you something make you take arrange your weekend.
What? Offense number 1, driving without particulars. Offense number 2, trying to bribe an officer of the law.
I won't harass Nigerians or take bribe. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We still have with us the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, and we are discussing with him the $9.6 billion judgment debt that has been awarded in favor of Process and Industrial Developments Limited on account of an agreement entered into with the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources in January 2010. A number of issues have come up. Our viewers have also expressed their positions on this issue. Kirian will have a second set of tweets.
Yes, okay, let me start. That's Badamasi Adamu. This is servitude. The move by President Buhari on the issue is commendable. The internal and external conspirators should be identified and punished severely to serve as deterrent to others.
Now, Danladi Ndayebo tweets, I do not believe that the P&ID case is hopeless for Nigeria. My advice to the federal government is to call the owners of P&ID for a meeting and quietly resolve the issue. $9 billion, it should be $9.6 billion is so huge and therefore unrealistic to expect Nigeria to pay. Reconciliation is the way to go.
All right, Professor Kimboewa.
It's Francis Obi, I believe.
Is it Francis Obi?
Yes.
Right. All right, yes. I will advise that a proper investigation be made to avoid a situation where someone signed secretly for Nigeria without going through the normal process.
Professor Sakimboyewa has this perspective that the concern is the precedent that this might set, because other foreign companies may then take advantage of the judgment to sue Nigeria. And since arbitration clauses do not prevent criminal enforcement, action must be taken against the company if found to be involved in any criminal activity in Nigeria.
Now, Dilajak Solomon says, at this time that the federal government is trying to reposition our imbalanced economy, Nigeria cannot afford to lose a huge sum amounting to 9.6 billion to anyone because of an aborted contract award. The government should persistently appeal the decision, even though we know P&ID is committed to vigorously enforcing its rights. The money awarded by the England court is manifestly too enormous. It's also pertinent that the government or political office holders stop awarding contract that we don't have financial capacity to execute.
Cecilia Okoroma, now those involved in this contract scam should be prosecuted. Local contractors are usually worst hit by such breaches.
Akeju Alabaju, the U.S. court ruling of 18 November 2018 ruled in favor of Nigeria, who is a respondent, and no appeal But P&ID rushed to UK as far as this is concerned. Nigeria owed nothing and should be seen not to pay a dime in any circumstance, and nothing was put on ground that warranted any payment.
Okay, well, those are the tweets that we'll take in the meantime. Let's return to some of the wider lessons that we ought to learn from this. Some of the tweets I've already spoken to that, and you have also touched on it, that henceforth we should be mindful of the arbitration clauses and the kinds of agreements that we enter into. There is also a related issue here. Of course, this is more of the remit of your counterpart in foreign affairs and, say, national planning. It appears that Nigeria tends to enter into all manner of agreements. And do we have a refinery, for draft agreements for Nigeria to process and get to understand the implications before appending its signature? We saw what happened with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that took quite a while, because the President Buhari said, no, hold on a minute, let's know precisely what is in this. And he got all stakeholders, and once it was clear and that, look, we needed to shift our position and that we will be key beneficiaries from this, okay, proceed and sign. But there have been all kinds of concerns. I mean, 1995 or thereabout, Nigeria was one of the early signatories to the WTO agreement, World Trade Organization, and after a while we found out, that our economy was worse for it. What are we likely to do to ensure that, look, the kind of agreements we get into that also raise the issue of financial subscriptions and therefore obligations that can also be a leakage on our resources? What is going to be government's disposition to this?
You see, Kingsley, I think it all has to do with leadership. We have one of the finest lawyers in our Ministry of Justice and one of the most patriotic lawyers in our Ministry of Justice. But some of these decisions, most of them were actually political decisions. And it was not unusual to even see the Ministry of Justice overruled sometimes. Because people have political interest, they have in economic selfish interest. Like you rightly pointed out, before we signed the African Continental, free trade, Mr. President ensured that all stakeholders were carried along. Many people were impatient. They were asking us, join the bandwagon, join the bandwagon. Now we have seen now that we were careful to ensure that we didn't rush into it so that it would not affect local manufacturers, it will not affect our local farmers, it will not affect our industries. And that's why we had very extensive consultations with industrialists, with farmers, and everybody. So that's why I believe it's really, really all about leadership. A leadership that is committed and patriotic will lead. Ministry of Justice and no server can only give technical and legal advice. But sometimes even when they give technical and legal advice and you have a bad political leadership, you end up in this kind of problem.
See, Honorable Minister, the question that Kingsley actually asked is apt, because if you look at our nation, historically speaking, and with respect to some gigantic projects in this country that would have turned things around for us, agreements and disagreements or arbitration or what have you, have always stalled the movement. Think of Ajakuta State Complex. The same kind of issues coming up. A state complex that would have catapulted Nigeria, above every other African nation in terms of steel production, is being stalled based on such agreements. That's number one. Railway projects did not just start now. It started from the military regimes of Babangida, Abacha, and what have you. And this issue of agreements not well tailored, still is lingering on. And it is only this government from now that is even correcting those anomalies that has happened. And now this one that we're talking about, where Nigeria has now been threatened, in terms of our existence has been threatened financially, if you ask me. Now, like Kingsley asked you, moving forward or going forward, the current administration, of course, is faced with the myriad, of such agreements that were not properly, handled in the past. What is the way going forward in terms of tackling all of this for us to, of course, see a better future as time goes on?
Well, I think we need more patriotic, committed leadership, political leadership. Because at the end of the day, a minister could decide to ignore all reasonable advice if it's self-centered and unpatriotic. So it again boils down to leadership. And that's why I think Nigeria is lucky that today we have a leader whose patriotism and dedication to Nigeria is not challenged even by his worst enemies. And is the beacon all ministers follow. So I think if we can establish this for the next 4 years, we would have been able to lay a solid foundation that would be impossible for, or difficult for any other successor to actually pull it down. So it's actually about, leadership.
In the current administration, sorry, Kingsley, in this administration, is there any limit to where a minister can take a decision that will be binding on the entire nation? Because from what you have unearthed, with concern to this 9.6 billion, it does seem that some persons, may have wielded their power.
I'm afraid that this went beyond minister. It was signed. I think it was signed by the highest echelon of government. This particular one. Okay. Because by the time you have this kind of sovereign. This was a contract between the federal petroleum resources and PID and ID, and it had to do with our gas. I don't think it was just something that we stop at the level of the minister. No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Well, I mean, some Nigerians will also be concerned as part of the issues that you have raised, Alhaji Lai. We lost Bakassi.
Yes, leadership again.
Are we going to lose $9.6 billion to a judgment debt?
No, Kingsley, we are leaving no stone unturned. We are even ready to sit down. We are willing to also sit down with PID and negotiate. Why do you take this matter to the highest level? That was both legal, diplomatic, and otherwise. Because it's not because we want to save money, but because we think it's just unfair. It is unconscionable. It's punitive. And I'm short of words to really describe, what the country is going through now. You don't inflict this kind of injury on a country and its people for your own selfish reasons. But like I said, please, the government is doing everything possible, to get a safe execution and also to, set aside this award. But of course, at the end of the day, we'll sit down with PID and, arrive at something that we think is reasonable for all the parties.
I'm just wondering, going back to the Bakassi, with respect to the ICJ, this judgment that Bakassi had, there was some evaluation in terms of the quality of the representation that we had in the entire process, giving advice as to what to do. What might be the disposition of the President Buhari administration to do this? On the one hand, it's kicked off criminal investigation, bringing in the ICPC, EFCC, NIA, and Office of the IGP. Nigeria has an array of legal minds, experts in international economic law, experts in international arbitration, and other things. Will the government seek to avail itself of the services of these Nigerians as part of the patriotic duty that all Nigerians owe to ensure that we don't suffer this humongous loss that is looming?
Just like I can assure you that as we speak, federal government is already doing that. And meetings are taking place along this line. We would want to make sure that our first level is engaged in this fight to ensure that we do not lose this $9.6 billion.
All right, sir. Information management. Let me just divide a little bit. Information management is very vital in a country like ours, where social media has pervaded, the entire, or rather occupied the entire, information space. And even the topic for this morning, which we're discussing, there are some background information on that. Some are correct, some are not correct. For some of them, you have already, told the true story, or brought up the real perspective to the issue. Now, going forward in information setting agenda, of course, the next level is where we are. So what will be the next level with respect to the information sector?
Well, we will try as much as possible to consolidate on some of the programs and projects that we embarked upon in between 2015 and 2019. Information management goes beyond television appearances, press releases. If you remember, between 2015 and 2019, we were quite resourceful, if I can say so. We organized town hall meetings. We must continue these town hall meetings. These town hall meetings provided veritable platforms for the government and the governed to exchange views on issues. And if you know the format of our town hall meetings, we'll go there with 5-6 ministers, depending on what matter was being discussed. And it was rotated from one geopolitical area to the other. We also, did this testimony series, which allowed Nigerians to actually tell people how government projects have benefited them. So we try to speak. Government try to speak through the people themselves. So it's not as if it's propaganda. We also, you remember, as a Minister of Information, we also were not, desk bound. We tried to go out with the media to see exactly what government was doing. So that it was not us really reporting, but the media was reporting what they saw. And I think we'll continue with this and other innovative ideas that will be brought up. But you see, today with social media, the challenges before any information minister all over the world, I think, is gargantuan. And I think, a few days ago, I saw that even Britain was so overwhelmed with the social media. The Parliament had to, I think they are trying to see how they could impose some kind of fines on, purveyors of fake news. So I think it's a global issue.
But is Nigeria taking that direction? Because there are many nations who have made laws, guiding the operational methodology when it comes to social media. Because, some go to jail for what they publish.
I know. You see, it depends. It depends on the climate and the country. But like we are appealing to Nigerians, let the social media self-regulate. If they don't, they will self-destruct. We'll continue our campaign against fake news. We'll continue to enlist the support of all players, because at the end of the day, if they don't self-regulate, like it's happening in Britain today, Britain is now trying to regulate and trying to impose fine on
publications. Yes.
Publications. So, but we still continue, I think, with our own advocacy.
One of the crucial agencies under your ministry is the National Orientation Agency, which is amenable for a wide range of activities in terms of not just public information management, but in orientation itself. But the indication is that the NOA is grossly under-resourced. What can be done about this?
I've started engaging National Assembly leadership. So, in fact, up till about 7 p.m. yesterday, I was with the chairman of the Senate Committee on Information and National Orientation. And one of the issues I went to discuss with them is that we have NOA, which has presence in each of the 774 local governments of the Federation. It is the most grassroots-based organization. They give us on a regular basis very accurate social, political, security report. Unfortunately, they are underfunded, they are under-resourced, and I went to appeal, also the National Assembly, to assist us to give teeth to this organization. And I'm going to also make the appeal to the members of the leadership of the National Assembly, because we must not allow National Orientation Agency to die. We must give it enough funding, because it's the only organization that is at a national level that you can see at the local government level. Every day I receive reports from National Orientation Agency. It speaks about even the prices of commodities, onions, palm oil, and it warns the government about likely, social eruptions. So that kind of agency must be supported. And we have a very dynamic, young man today who is at the end of their affairs, who is totally at home with that portfolio. But he needs support of everybody, especially the National Assembly and the government, in getting the necessary funds. I quite understand too that the issue, we have today is that the economy is facing challenges, but I think we must give priority to this like the NOA.
And again, reorientation is key. Yes, we may have economic difficulties, but we need that reorientation.
Clearly, you've forgotten that even before I assumed this office as minister in 2015, I was so concerned about this reorientation that we came up with an elaborate program. Change begins with me. It was launched by Mr. President, and which I must again thank the NTA for continuously airing it. I thank FRCM for doing so. We must find partnership, we must find resources, because that program, Change Begins With Me, speaks to the core of Nigerian problem today. The problem in Nigeria is not just leadership, it's all of us.
Yeah,
if that change can begin with all of us, whether you are a whether you are a lorry driver, or you are a customs officer, or you are a minister, or you are a pepper seller, and you see that change must begin with you. And so we need this reorientation. And partnership with NOA, we started this Change Begins With Me, which we are going to consolidate upon.
Kingsley, you recall in the 80s, war against indiscipline.
That's right.
That was why, and I'm happy that it's been sustained. That is the NOA we're talking about today. This is a replica of NOA we're talking about today.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So on that note, we'd like to thank you, the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you very much, Kingsley.
Okay, so that does it for our conversation segment. Let's go over now to our sports desk.
The Super Falcons of Nigeria defeated their host Algeria 2-0 in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics qualifier, second round, first leg in Bidar on Wednesday night. The African champions took the lead in the 15th minute after Algeria defender Yudao put the ball into our own net. Amaracho Kolonko doubled the advantage for the Super Falcons in the 54th minute. The reverse fixture of the 2020 Olympics qualifier will hold at the Agege Stadium, Lagos, next week Tuesday. The Super Falcons are bidding to make a return to the Olympic Games for the first time in 12 years. Also, Super Eagles forward Alex Iwobi scored on his first start for Everton, who defeated Lincoln City 4-2 in their Europa League second round clash at the Sinsu Bank, Lincoln.
Here's Chantosa getting it back, and it's in from Alex Iwobi. His first goal for Everton.
The Nigerian international netted Everton's third goal of the encounter and was replaced by Theo Walcott 8 minutes from time. And in the French League One, another Super Eagles forward, Victor Osimhen, was on target twice as Lille defeated St. Etienne 3-0 on Wednesday. Jonathan Bamba added his second for Lille from the spot, and Osimhen then scored his second of the game 16 minutes from time. The Nigerian internationals now scored 4 goals in 3 league appearances for Lille. And in tennis, Roger Federer came from a set down to beat Damien Dumont 3-6, 6-2, 6-3, 6-4 under the Arthur Ashe Stadium roof to reach the US Open third round.
Victory for Roger Federer. Not the cleanest by any stretch of the imagination, but he gets it done.
Well, let's now take you to the entertainment world.
Mervyn's record signee, Rema, makes former President of the United States, Barack Obama's 2019 summer playlist with his hit song, Iron Man. The former president shared a list of 44 songs on his Twitter handle, placing Rema on number 42. The list consists of other international stars. Rema is a fast-rising Afrobeat singer known for his prominent singles, Iron Man and Dumebi. Moving on from music to movies, for movie lovers, Black Panther 2 is set to return to cinemas in May of 2022. This is according to the announcement made by Marvel Studios and Black Panther writer and director Ryan Coogler, who is returning to write and direct the sequel.
My son, it is your time.
Details on those who will be returning as lead actors in the movie are still under wraps.
All right, we were having conversations, trying to wrap up what we started, of course, behind the screen. But for now, it's about time to go. We'd like to thank you for your time sharing with us. And of course, once again, appreciate your concern for being part of our show this morning. My name is Kirian Umar. I will see you again tomorrow. And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Kirian in thanking you for being with us. As you said, tomorrow is another day, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, we'll have a great day.